Welcome back. Welcome back. It is episode 57 of Collateral Banter. That's right. I'm your host, Danny T, and things are just heating up. So I know I have to spend a few minutes talking about the presidential primaries. How exciting is that? The Democratic presidential primary. Oh, it's so exciting right now. I mean, there are so many forces happening all at the same time that it causes me to have some anxiety. Like, what's really going on? So I'm recording this on March 3rd, Super Tuesday. This past Saturday is when things really took off. Up until now, it's been pretty much a race that Bernie has been leading. And Pete Buttigieg was in second place. But now, after this past Saturday, we saw Joe Biden has the potential to displace Bernie Sanders, okay? That's what we saw on Saturday because Joe Biden got a strong and large victory. He got the support of Clyburn, who's a Democratic politician from South Carolina. Everything aligned around Biden, and that win was a much stronger win for Biden than other wins that have happened. For example, I don't even know who won Iowa at this point. But it was a significant win for Biden on Saturday, and it has changed the complexion of the primary. So a few days later, I think on, now I'm forgetting, but I think it was Sunday, I get messages from friends of mine saying, Pete Buttigieg is out. Now, the weird thing about that didn't make any sense to me is he was in third place. He had 25 delegates. Biden, because of his big victory on Saturday, was now clearly in second place and about 7 or 10 delegates away from Bernie. So it was weird that the guy in third place would drop out, but it wasn't weird. Clearly there was a deal made behind the scenes between Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. And the deal was, we'll give you some power, either a position in the government or a position in the Democratic Party if you quit now. So it was probably a very advantageous deal for Pete Buttigieg. And the truth is, he wasn't going to win a lot of the Hispanic and black vote. And in a very diverse party that is the Democratic Party today, you really don't have a shot at winning the nomination. So he probably did the wisest thing. But he quit, just surprising given where he was. And then Amy Klobuchar, who had done well in the debates, but didn't see a success in so far in all of the primaries and caucuses. So it was surprising that she still quit by Tuesday, but not a big shock. Once Pete left, I'm sure there was plenty of pressure on Amy quitting, and the goal now is to solidify support for the centrist candidate. And this is really fascinating because what's really happening here is a fight for the Democratic Party between anti-establishment Bernie Sanders, who wants to remake and remodel the Democratic Party, versus the centrists that want to continue on the Obama presidency. And essentially it's a fight between Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama. And that's how I think anybody should see this. It is a fight between Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders. And Barack Obama, because of his legendary status within the party, can't come out and just say, I support Joe Biden, he's my vice president. That would not be fair to Bernie, and it would cause a major fracturing of the party if Barack Obama were to come out and blatantly support Joe Biden for the nomination. Because I believe if that's what Barack Obama does, that all of the young people that Bernie has gone to, all of the work that Bernie has done to increase and empower the party would be gone. Essentially, people would feel betrayed by the Democratic Party. They would see it as a takeover by the establishment who are losing the control of the party to Bernie Sanders, but now reestablish control with a Joe Biden nomination. Interestingly, I don't think there will be a winner but it all, I guess, depends on tonight and how well Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden do. And the expectations is that Joe Biden will do well in the South, and in the diverse states, Bernie Sanders will win in Texas and in California, and in other states the Democrats usually win. So it is a really interesting divide that is happening, the sort of moderates versus the more progressive wing, and it is a fight for the party. And I think this is really kind of going to define the Barack Obama era. I mean, Joe Biden is essentially carrying the mantle for Barack Obama. And it will be interesting to see if Bernie doesn't get it because of the superdelegates. And I want people to know the superdelegates will only come in if during the first round nobody gets 1,991 delegates. Then the superdelegates get to vote. And that was something that changed after the 2016 primary. And Bernie Sanders and his surrogates were behind that change, saying, okay, it was an agreement they made. The superdelegates can come in, but only after we've had the first ballot. And so I think the elites now will use that against Bernie if he's unable to get to 1991 in terms of delegates. And we'll see. We'll see where that goes. It's interesting. I haven't spoken about Elizabeth Warren. I thought she would have done better in the delegate counts, but maybe she will today. It's interesting to see what she will do after today, after Tuesday. Because if she does not win any state, if she doesn't even win Massachusetts, the state I am recording this podcast from, I think it's going to be really hard for her to justify her candidacy. And if she doesn't quit, this is what will happen. In the next few weeks, the pressure from the Bernie wing of the party will grow. And some will say, hey, are you with us or are you with the establishment? Because she's the sort of one candidate who is in between. People want it both ways. Like she's a perfect combination of Bernie and the centrist moderates of the party. And she certainly touts herself as that. I'm not sure she can justify her candidacy to win the nomination. I just don't know. I just don't think it will happen if she can't win a few states tonight or do really well, finish second or third. It seems like for Bernie Sanders, I think it will be tough. He will have a case to make. He will have a case to make against Elizabeth Warren if she does not leave, if she can't win the nomination, if it's mathematically impossible. So I think the real fight is going to happen in the next few weeks where many, many states will count. The important thing is from the party's perspective is to not allow Bernie to run away with it, right? The closer Bernie gets to 1991, the harder it will be to deny him the nomination, right? And so I think that's what their goal. They're basically doing math, and they will know tonight what is the probability of it being a brokered convention. Right? Meaning nobody wins in the first round, but then is Biden able to win it in the second round with the help of the superdelegates, which is legally allowed according to the rules of the Democratic Party. And I think that's what the elites and that's what Barack Obama wants. And he will have to time Obama's support for Biden, which I think is guaranteed, I would say. But he'll have to do it in such a way that it will look like there was a fair competition for the nomination. And the Bernie crowd almost got there, but didn't quite get there. And so that's what will happen. And it would be interesting. I believe, and it's a bit conspiracy theory here from Danny T today, but I believe, and I have no evidence to prove this, but I believe that a few weeks back when Elizabeth Warren began taking her shots at Bernie Sanders and the things he had said to her about a woman can't be president or things like that, I believe that there was a shift in the Warren strategy that the ruling elites in the Democratic Party wanted to convince her that the way to the nomination was to knock out Bernie Sanders and then you could run away with it. And she was unable to do that. So now I'm wondering if the elites are hoping to reward Elizabeth Warren with some position of power, both in the government, in a Biden administration, or in the Democratic Party if she stays. Because although Bernie and Elizabeth Warren supporters don't necessarily overlap, if they overlap by just a little bit, which I'm sure they do, at some point they do, maybe the elites say, look, if we do some calculations and some math, it's good for us if Elizabeth Warren is just able to hold back some supporters for Bernie Sanders and just take away a small percentage of Bernie Sanders supporters in certain states. And by doing that, it reduces Bernie Sanders' ability to get to 1991, okay? And the ability to reduce Bernie's chance, mathematical probability to get to 1991, maybe Elizabeth Warren serves her purpose as sort of a spoiler for Bernie Sanders. And it's why just yesterday I saw a headline for an article where Twitter or somebody on social media was demanding that Elizabeth Warren drop out, right, as a way of giving impetus to the Bernie Sanders nomination as the centrist moderate wing begins to coalesce around Joe Biden, which I think is such a risky gamble because so Trump has done two things, I think, very effectively. He's begun to taint Joe Biden's nomination as corrupt through his son, which I'm not sure what Biden's role is. But again, he was able to just spin the story that Hunter Biden is corrupt, taking deals, and they're going to make it all about Burisma. And you're going to hear the right-wing media, and you already have, but you're going to hear it over and over again if Joe Biden wins the nomination. And interestingly, those who support Joe Biden in the centrist wing of the Democratic Party are trying to paint Bernie Sanders in his anti-establishment revolution as a Russian conspiracy, which, again, without any proof or evidence that the Russians are somehow behind Bernie Sanders' nomination, they just sound crazy. I mean, Chris Matthews and the things he has said on TV recently about Bernie Sanders, it's just like, wow, he's losing his mind on TV. He compared Bernie Sanders' rise in his win in Nevada to the Nazi takeover of France. I mean, I thought that was just bizarre. I mean, what are you talking about? And then I remember a few weeks before that, he was worried if somebody like Bernie Sanders were to win, he was worried he would be taken to Central Park and shot. And the thing is, he invites on many people who support Bernie Sanders. So I don't know if he was just, the stress of 2020 has just gotten to him. There's another, I think, just a victim of 2020 is the stress that somebody like Chris Matthews just couldn't handle, even though he follows politics. He's sort of, it's not making any sense to him. The way I understand it, and I'll just throw it out, 2020 sounds like very much like in the mold of 2016. You're seeing a fight again between establishment and anti-establishment. You're seeing an election, and I'm not sure this is the right description, but it feels like a postmodern election. And the election really is a fight between anti-establishment and establishment, where nobody's really debating policies and how to govern, but it's sort of, what do you represent? What is it that you're carrying in your heart and your ideas? And it's less about, these are the measures I will use if I govern. And that nobody's really debating. Whereas maybe I'm wrong, but in the past, it felt like there was more discussion about policy. How will I govern? No, it's almost come down to all about candidacy. I can win the presidency if I'm a strong candidate, if people believe that I'm authentic. That's what it's really come down to. Nobody's debating Elizabeth Warren's policy proposals, which I'm sure the vast majority of her supporters haven't even read themselves. But they are able to say she has a policy paper for that. She has a policy vision. Everybody's like, oh, these policies are great. The thing about the policies that a lot of people know is, they're not automatically law if you get elected president, right? There's a process to pass legislation. And her attack on the filibuster, to me, makes no sense. And I've said this once before, but I will repeat it again. Here's why I think Elizabeth Warren and her attack on the filibuster does not make any sense and is dangerous for the Democrats. Look, if you can guarantee that the Democrats will control the Senate from this point forward and for the next 50 years, maybe changing the filibuster rule would be okay. But the filibuster rule protects the minority party in the Senate, okay? Without the filibuster, okay, let's say the Republicans got rid of the filibuster rule, Donald Trump would have been able to do everything and anything he wanted because there were at least 51 votes. They would have repealed Obamacare. They would have gotten rid of so many things. People need to remember that. She is making a very simplistic argument about the filibuster. We should just get rid of it and we'll just govern and the people will be behind us. And that's what leaders are all about. It's just get rid of the filibuster. This is a huge mistake. And to believe that means that either you're going to always guarantee there will be 51 Democrats in the Senate, because if you cannot and the Republicans take over the Senate, they will govern radically. And they are already starting to appoint a massive number of judges. So I just am fearful that people make these statements about the filibuster and don't think of the consequences, because if Donald Trump were to have abolished the filibuster, and he has asked for that, he hasn't gotten it. But if he had the ability to abolish the filibuster, he could have implemented everything he wanted, gotten rid of Obamacare, and who knows what they would do. They had passed the tax cuts, which they got around the filibuster rule. But people should be careful when you hear politicians just say, get rid of the filibuster. It exists for a reason. It does slow down change, which means you have to construct coalitions with some Republicans and Democrats. And I fear that it's going to be abolished one day in the future regardless. So even though I'm praising it as a protection, but it is the only measure of protection for the minority party in the Senate. And look, Obamacare got passed because the Democrats had 60 senators by 2008. And it was transformative because of the 2008 financial crisis, the bailouts, the war in Iraq, and those were the reasons. So I keep repeating that, but that's basically why the Democrats were able to govern in a very unique way. Otherwise, they would have needed Republican votes to get through the filibuster. So again, it exists for a reason. It is very difficult. As the parties are polarized, I do fear it is going to be abolished. But it should be noted that it is a very dangerous, simplistic understanding of that rule, that you should just get rid of it and the Democrats will then pass single payer and everything will be fine. You could easily be punished in an election in the Senate, lose the Senate, lose the presidency, lose the House. And the Republicans have already governed all three houses many times in the last 20 years. If they were to have that type of control, there goes Medicare, privatizations, there goes Social Security, and they wouldn't need the 60 votes to get all that through. So people need to hold up on just simplistically believing just get rid of the filibuster. So that's what I wanted to say. I thought it was very important that I have to defend some things about democracy, and that's one of them. And unless somebody can guarantee that Republicans won't have a majority in the Senate, which I know is impossible, then getting rid of the filibuster is a dangerous move. That's my opinion. That's how I view it. A lot of things didn't happen because the filibuster's in place, and the Democrats are they are 4 or 5 seats away from a majority in the Senate. So that's my view. I really think it's going to be a 3-person race. I didn't even talk about Bloomberg. Is an interesting choice because he has unlimited amount of funds. And if it's a huge fight between Biden and Bernie, and Biden slips, all of the support begins to coalesce about Bloomberg. And since he doesn't need to raise money, he just needs to do well tonight, collect some delegates, begin to move towards 1991. And he's hoping that Biden will mess up and screw up, and people will notice that he's not a very good campaigner. Maybe he was in the past, but he has gone off the rails in some campaigns, stops and campaign speeches where he's talking and he's not making a lot of sense. And there's no way Bloomberg sees that and says, like, yep, that's the guy who we should all support. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll quit tonight and support Joe Biden. But I don't think so. I think he realizes that there's something wrong with Joe Biden as a candidate. I'm sure he knows how to govern. But again, it's all about the candidacy. It's all about the spectacle. That's what it really comes down to. It's all about the spectacle. That's how I view it. Okay. Well, that's Collateral Banter, episode 57. That's my recap. I will try to record another episode soon, maybe later this week or early next week. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening. All right. That's Collateral Banter. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I have a feeling Bernie will probably be the nominee. Who knows? I guess we'll know better tonight what will happen in Milwaukee, where the convention will be held. So, all right, it's Collateral Banter, episode 57. Thanks for listening.